I mean, let's break down some key issues, and we just have these carbon taxes and climate policies, and it just rears its head time and time again. It's the boogeyman issue, and if you tax us more, that the temperature will change, type of thing. So it's not that uh, climate and pollution is not important. It's just the fact that if I pay a tax, it doesn't actually go away. That's the problem of it, right? And so, where do these line out? It's like, they both want to cancel the carbon tax in their current form, but I don't know. Every time you listen to Carney, he just opens the door for some new Carney carbon tax form. So, I mean, I think that's the delineation I hear on that issue between them. Poilievre's going to back away from it, and Carney's going to back away from Trudeau's version and then implement his own version, which is probably going to be somewhat similar and chaotic too.
Yeah, and if you look at the things online and some of the recordings that he's even stated that carbon pricing is good for business. It's good for investment. It's good for them to make a whole boatload of money, even if it doesn't do anything to actually change the weather, right? And
Yeah.
that's a big thing people don't really understand. It's like all of this stuff is a big game. They're just moving things around and they're setting up these green initiatives, and the whales are getting rich and everyone else is getting poor. I think people need to kind of get that idea in their head.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the one issue. Is it the most significant of the bunch? I don't think it might be annoying, but it's probably not the most significant of bunch. And then, the next, kind of platform issue would be taxation. And Poilievre has, well, Carney, he's going to wants to reduce the first marginal rate by 1%, and Poilievre wants to reduce the first marginal rate by 2.25%. And people, I've seen this online. It's going to be 15% tax. Like, no, like stop, people. It's just a 2.25% reduction on the first marginal rate. That's
Yeah.
it, right? Your first 57,000 bucks or so. That's all it is. So it's, Carney's plan is going to save, and I'm going to say save the average household uh 800 bucks, and Poilievre's going to save the average household $1,800. But what neither of them are telling you is neither has a plan to actually balance the budget. So all they plan to do is print some new money. So whether they save you 800 or 1,800 or 8,000, you're going
Yeah.
to pay that much more for all the goods and services you want later on. So
Yeah.
they're just going to bribe you with your future earning power. So that one is going to end up being a nothing burger. Even kind of more so than the carbon amount, because it's like, people say, well, you cut taxes and you'll increase the productivity and you'll increase people's, like, so you're going to cut taxes by 2.25%, and the guy sitting at home, watching Netflix, who wasn't using his first basic rate, is going to suddenly start working. It's like, no, that's not going to do anything. It's really just changing the timing of your earning power. That's all it is. If you truly understand the
Mhm.
monetary system and money printing, it's like you can't actually save someone through taxes unless you actually have a balanced budget, which neither platform involves. So that one's probably going to be the biggest nothing burger of all of them. And that's something to consider, right? So
What else did you want to talk about today? What else is on the agenda? It's really Carney versus Poilievre. All the other parties are essentially irrelevant. The Bloc will probably take a big chunk in Quebec, which is, it's significant. I mean, they could be the official opposition. They were once before, which I think is crazy. It's a party that only represents one people in one province, yet they have the ability to run for the election for the entire country. It's bizarre. Anyways, what's the next thing on the list that we should be thinking about? Carney versus Poilievre.
housing. So housing, it's, Carney, roughly, he's going to make housing GST exempt for first-time home buyers up to $1 million. Poilievre, GST exempt for anyone up to 1.3 million. Okay, and that's about roughly what they've pledged. But I need to break that down because people don't realize how similar that is, and how painful that is. First of all, whenever I hear these limits locked in, it's like, why a million? Why 1.3 million? Whenever you hear a politician give you a limit, a set limit, it's like they've just demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of money, of actual money. Because what do? They print more new money. And so at least if they index it to the fake government inflation rate. So some things are, right? Like the tax brackets are generally they increase each year with the CPI. But whenever you have these crazy things where they just pick a number out of thin air and then it's not indexed to anything, it just tells you the thought process or lack thereof of the person implementing that limit. So whether it's 1 or 1.3, it should be indexed to inflation, so it goes up automatically, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just end up with these weird variations in the market. Like for the longest time, it's like you had to put, 5% down on $1 million home, and all of a sudden it became 1.5 million overnight. And you just had these weird arbitrages where houses didn't want to go past $1 million. So as soon as I see that, I just get frustrated that that they're not going to index. Whenever I hear politicians singular limits and they're not indexed to inflation, it's painful. But let's break it down further. So
Sure.
it will be difficult for like how many new first home buyers are going to be able to buy $1 million house without mom and dad's help? That's a small number group, right? So
Yeah.
what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of crappy little condos built. It incentivizes, first home buyers buying more crappy little condos, the 400 square foot one bedroom or specials in the GTA type thing. Like that that that's kind of what you're
Mm-hmm.
incentivizing by that. At least Poilievre's with a 1.3, it incentivizes probably people moving up the ladder. They might trade out of the crappy little condo to get a nicer house and they can still get the GST exemption. But the devil's in the details. It's GST exempt, which is different from I haven't heard anyone talk about it being zero rated. So people have to understand how this works, right? And so if I'm a builder and I'm going to build $1 million house and I buy land in a taxable sale and I buy from tradespeople in taxable sales, and say I put 700,000 bucks into that, and I'm planning to make $300,000 on it. And if you want to look up the profit margins for residential construction, you can see that on our IG, and most people think that might be possible, but it certainly is. So they make their 30 points. That means the builder still has to pay in Alberta, they'd have to pay their 5% GST on the 700,000. So that cost didn't go away. It didn't cost the builder a million. Like
Mm-hmm.
the builder didn't have a cost of 700,000. The builder's going to have a cost of 735,000. Now, previously, they would be tacking on 5% to the million. But in order for them to still make the 300,000, because the GST is not in and out, basically, they're going to have to charge 1,035,000. Okay, because they're no longer charging it to the customer in GST, which they get to offset the GST spent on it. And so in a roundabout way, it's like that $1 million house with GST that would have cost 1,050,000 is still going to cost 1,035,000 under both of
Mm-hmm.
those plans, because I haven't heard either of them say that it's zero rated. It's just exempt. But the problem is the cost in constructing those houses still had GST on it. So the builder has to recover that in the sales price. And so the savings is not going to be the GST or the HST. It's really just going to be the GST or HST on the builder's profit portion. So call it, 30% times X, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're, in Alberta, it's 30% times the 5%. Like that's all it is. It's 1.5%. So it's much smaller than everyone thinks it is. It's that $1 million, that 1,050,000 is not going to be a million. It's not going to be, if you're 13%, it's not going to be 13% on the whole million, because the builder's still going to have to recover the GST that they paid. I haven't heard any plans to make it zero rated. So some things are zero rated where you can actually recover the GST you paid to deliver that good or service, and some things are exempt. If they're exempt, you don't you don't charge your customer GST, but you can't recover the GST that you paid as well too. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's going to be nearly as big as everyone thinks, and I just get frustrated every time when these politicians come up with these limits and no mechanism to index them to any sort of inflation, even the fake CPI inflation.
Yeah, it always sounds good when they make these promises. The other thing that he's talking about is having municipalities reduce the red tape. They'll be holding back funds to municipalities if they don't, cut back the red tape and they don't green light more new home starts and buildings, freeing up land so that it can be purchased and developed. Like, what about all that stuff? Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, good, but I mean, tether your expectations because those policies are set that they take years, not months. Budgets are set annually. Um, And so it'll make some process, but we're talking about a 4-year term. Like, how far down the road are they going to get that in 4 years? It's like they're not going to cut those development fees in half. Maybe they make better progress in some cities than others. I think that's a noble goal and a good project, but it's certainly one that would seem very, very challenging to accomplish completely in a 4-year term. So helpful, a positive, a check, but I think people think that $1 million house is somehow going to cost $500,000. It's like, that house was $1,050,000. It's like maybe it's 975 with all these changes or
Yeah.
something, right? Like maybe it's 1 million really, even
Yeah.
so. That would be
Yeah.
optimistic.
At any rate, I think I'd prefer the opportunity or the hope that young people in Canada, my kids and your kids included, will be able to purchase a single family home at some point, or an attached townhouse or something like that, as opposed to cubicle government housing, which seems like that's what Carney is planning. You're having modular homes kind of slapped together, so there'll be lots of affordable housing in Canada. I think we're going to have a podcast on that OECD or the Parliamentary Budget Office, what they put out for the prospects for Canada in the future.
The prospects of Canada. It's starting to sound a lot like my conspiracy theory. Is coming out of the government of Canada official departments now. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not so conspiratorial as I've been telling people
Yeah.
what they think life is going to look like. So, I mean, yeah, Carney has promised building government-styled housing, but so did Trudeau. Did they actually finish it? It's a big bureaucratic process. Like, how far down the road will they get? Like, how many units are they going to build?
As far
It's not.
as I know, they built zero so far.
Yeah, like it
Lots of
won't be
money changed
millions.
hands.
It likely won't be hundreds of thousands. It might be tens of thousands, if any. Like that would be the
Yeah,
realistic
lots of money
expectation
changed
there.
hands,
So
but no homes were built. Anyways, go ahead.
energy infrastructure, like this is like suddenly this has become important for the liberals that they want to build an energy corridor. So it's like energy projects were not important until it's like the order of operations is you have like right here is like the importance is like the Canadian job, having a good high paying Canadian jobs is right here. The environment ranks ahead of Canadians having good higher paying jobs, but what ranks at the top is if you can stick it to Trump. It just seems to be that that's what the liberals thing is. Like, the energy corridor was not a priority at all until it became a mechanism to stick it to Trump. Like that's just what we're talking about.
And,
So like I don't believe if it's really of as importance to them, because like, why now? Why at this point is an energy corridor useful to them? So I know they're saying it. I don't believe them. And then, but on the flip side, you have the conservatives too, who I believe them when they say it's important to them, but I don't believe their conviction in accomplishing the goal, because I truly believe to build resource and energy projects, it's these aren't projects that take months. These are projects that take years. And in terms of a 4-year term, it's like you have to be out of the gate going, and you have to be willing to almost bend and break rules and upset people to get them done. Because if you get them done by the end of your term, those projects will still be producing decades from now. But if they're still in some sort of planning phase when your 4-year term is up, you've accomplished nothing. It's either finish or it doesn't happen at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at the end of the day, because there's going to be resistance, it's like ultimately we set this financial incentive system up for the people that we elect, where, you know, at the end of the day, rather than piss people off in their third and fourth year, they're going to choose to print money, give away free stuff, and likely, have these projects in the planning stage still at the end, and not accomplish them. So, I mean, I really hope I'm wrong on that. Like, I truly believe they do want to build them, but I don't think they're willing to have the personal cost, and the personal cost is likely you're likely not going to get reelected if you just put the hammer down and finish them. If you do the right thing and do it, it might not have you at a reelectable position, and a lot of them just want to get their pension. So I've said it before. It's like, unfortunately, most MPs and the conservatives right now still is like they're still the people who would put on the masks to take the picture for the media, even though they didn't believe it. So, at the 11th hour, when they know it, they're likely not going to get reelected, are they going to do what they can to finish those energy and resource projects? It's like, I don't see it. I wish I was wrong, because that is like the one thing that would truly move the needle. And I just don't think we're there yet. I don't think the political will exists, and ultimately they'll probably do the softer decision and not finish those projects. What do
You
you
mean
think,
the
Trevor?
weak decision? The weak decision.
Yeah,
They're not going to
the
do
weak
what's right and
decision.
what's necessary, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
do some contrast. Like, what the heck do they do in Dubai? Like, that place is banging. They've got all kinds of interesting infrastructure projects. They've got buildings. They've got trains, and they've got development, and people are flocking to there like it's just the best thing on earth. What are they doing differently? Why is it working there? And we've got way more resources than the UAE could ever imagine. What's the deal?
Um, they just they're not worried about getting reelected. And so, like, when you look around the Middle East, you have ones that are just like completely chaotic, and then you have other, regimes like in the UAE where they're just like they're focused on leaving a legacy, and they're just going to build these projects, and they're not thinking in terms of 4-year terms. They're thinking in terms of decades and generations, and so they're going to get these projects built. It's just kind of a drastically different mindset, and we're just not there yet. And that requires a cultural shift, because ultimately
Mm-hmm.
the people we elect in our democratic process will just do the easy thing. And so there has to be a demand from the bottom, and we're not there yet. I mean, you saw the guy from Brandon who stuck up the middle fingers and he went viral, right?
Right?
It's
Yeah.
just like that was kind of a watershed moment. It was like one of those Canadian moments, like not the good ones we talk about, but one of the bad ones, where it's like a lot of people had to realize it's like, the older generation. It's like you'd hope that they were just clueless to the debt that they were ringing up, but then you realize. I think a lot of people realized when they saw that image, it just clicked into a lot of people that it was just like they're not hopeless. They just don't care.
They
They
just don't
just they're
care. Yeah.
they're just happy to ring up enough debt to make, a little better for them, because they're not going to have to deal with the consequences. And there are some people who really do care. Like, there are some, baby boomers out there who really do care, and there are a lot of baby boomers out there who really just don't understand it. They don't understand. But I'm telling you, it's like when you saw that image, you start to understand. It's like there's some that they know exactly what it is, and they just don't care the mess that they leave the next generation with,
Mm.
right? And it's just too many, right? And I still think that the future looks bright, but um it's kind of a long term thing, right? Where um, at some point that's not going to be culturally acceptable, but we're a ways away from that. We're years away from that, potentially a decade or two away from that, right? So,
Yeah.
um, like I think we're going to get there, but I think that was very telling when you saw that image, and that's why
Hmm.
it went. That's why it spread so fast. I think it just registered in people's mind. It's like, wait a minute, they know and they don't care.
Yeah. That was very sad.
Yeah.
But what's the next thing on the list that we want to talk about, comparing Carney versus Poilievre?
I mean, they're all going to talk the same on trade and tariffs as Canada first type of thing. Like I don't see any really delineation in between the two. I mean, if you don't develop the resource projects, I think everything that you talk about on trade and tariffs are just meaningless anyways,
Hmm.
because that would be the quickest to market. It's not like we're going to become expert at manufacturing in 4 years. Like that's not going to happen. You could sell high value resources and that could move quicker. So you can talk tough on trades and tariffs, but unless you're developing resources and building trade relations, it won't really matter. It's just rhetoric. It sounds good, but
Hmm.
it's not likely to have a real effect, I think.
Yeah, we need to build stuff here in Canada. We got to build lots of
Yeah.
things. We got to get resources developed and sold.
Yeah. Then the last one is actually the deficit and spending. Like, I really want to talk about this one because, you know, probably a lot of viewers of this show are lean, they're probably more conservative in nature and they lean right, but like there's something very interesting going on here with the deficit and spending, and I don't think most people really understand it. It's like they think it's black and white, but it's shades of gray here, and they really have to understand. It's like Carney is kind of planning 200, let's call it $225 billion of spending in the next 4 years, right? So, like, let's just round it off. It's like he's gonna spend 60 billion a year, right? And that's kind of what we spent this year. So,
Hmm.
after they dropped the illegitimate baby, which was our finance report off of the House of Commons, like it turned out to be $20 billion over. So no one want to take responsibility for it, but Carney's actually just going straight into it. He's going to, spend 60 billion a year in deficit spending. Okay. First of all, if he's telling you he's going to do 60, if they're telling you they're going to do 225, they're going to do 300. It's always going to be more. Trust. And if Poilievre's telling you he's going to do 150, he's going to do 200 too. So I just set your expectations realistically, people. It's like
Insane. These
pretty
people
much
are
from here
nuts.
on in, the way the money printer works, it's very likely that any government will spend more than the last government, even across party lines. That's a very likely outcome. So um, Carney's going to spend more, and Poilievre's going to spend less, but they're both going to overspend. Okay, so let's call it, but despite of what they're saying, I would say real world numbers is like let's call it 200 billion to 300 billion, and all that's subject to change if the money printer fires up really good. So